My name's Daniel Dwyer, your host for the next hour or so, and I'm very happy to be delighted, to be honoured, to be smiling that Rich Vogel's here. Sir,
Hey,
stalwart of the MMO world, and you guys are here with Battlecry Studios, a very
Absolutely.
different game to, I think, what people would associate your rich tapestry of games you've made
Absolutely.
in the past.
Absolutely.
So you were obviously involved in the Old Republic,
Yes.
as far back as Ultima Online, as
Yes.
Star Wars Galaxies as well. Battlecry is a very different type of game.
Absolutely.
Explain for the folks at home. I think that CG trailer a lot of people have seen.
Yeah.
But what's the sort of what are the bones of what Battlecry is?
So basically what we did is we looked for, we didn't want to do a MOBA, we didn't want to do an FPS, we didn't want to do an action RPG. We looked around and said, no one's doing an action combat game in multiplayer mode.
Yeah.
So we looked around and we took, we looked at Arcane, we looked at Arkham Asylum, we looked at Devil May Cry, we looked at God of War as our inspirations. We said, this is the game we want to build with a close third-person camera and be able to put people into the combat arena. And so we said we wanted to make our combat intimate and personal. So how do we do this? Well, we didn't want to have guns in our game, so we didn't want to make an FPS. So we came up with some backstory fiction that a world war happened 200 years ago, and they banned gunpowder.
Okay.
And so they had treaties formed where these battle zones, or war zones we call them, players would come in, these elite warriors would come in and fight over disputes. So we have 3 factions in our game. 2 are announced at E3. It's the Cossacks, which is the Russian-based, and the British Empire, which is obviously the English-based faction. And we have one more that we haven't announced yet, and they'll be fighting for these elite warriors be fighting. And there are 5 classes that we have. They're very unique, with unique abilities that you level up over time. That goes into tiering. And you can open up new weapons and new abilities as you go up as you progress. And there's a meta war as well that gets that people have fight over the map. And the cool thing about our game is, number one is we're showing very basic team deathmatch here, but the reality is we're really about co-op. So we're going to have other modes that are very co-op oriented, objective oriented that players are used to. So we want to attract the FPS and multiplayer fans out there. And the kind of tagline we used is, this is Team Fortress 2 meets the brutality of 300.
Awesome.
And that's what we're about.
So we're looking at gameplay here. Of course, this is being led artistically by Victor Akhtanov, who's somebody people would be very familiar with in terms of Half-Life, Dishonored. One of my favorites, Kingpin, Life of Crime, he was also involved in.
Absolutely.
It looks absolutely stunning.
Oh yeah, so we really wanted to make our art style stand out and be very unique. We kind of use it in the sense of, these places are where warriors are going to die. So when you're in that kind of situation, you're in battle, everything is surreal. And so that's kind of like what we did in our art style. And the other thing is, you can see here we have these magnetic poles that allow players to move the map quickly. We have a lot of verticality in our maps, and this helps with, number one, we do have warriors in our game that are ranged as well as melee. So we want to make sure that there's not this huge clumping going on in our game, so there's actually the ability for players to strategically look at the map and position themselves. And again, the Enforcer that you see here, he's the tank of our game. He's the one with the big sword. We have the Duelist, which is the double edge. That's the Assassin, and he has a stealth ability that comes in, and he can go in and attack quickly and come out. We have really good female warriors in our game. We're not scared to have female warriors in our game. We have them in our game.
Front and center as well.
Absolutely, they're front and center. The Cossack female Enforcer, she is amazing. She is brutal with her sword, and someone you don't want to miss. Now the other thing, you see his sword turn into a shield. And we have this thing because, again, if gunpowder wasn't around, how would these weapons evolve over time? So we have it called pansophic technology, that these weapons have a lot of cool, at the turn of this century, which is the industrial age. This happens in 1915 on our alternate timeline. So that you can see the lightning, which is basically magnetic way of doing things. And you'll see weapons transform into like the big sword into a shield. And then there's like adrenaline that you earn in the game that gives you some kind of super abilities for a while. So if someone gangs up on you, if you're ranged, you have the super ability that you can use to get out of it.
It's the games you were referencing at the start, the God of War, and those are games that are often the combat sort of works because you're fighting other AI, and they can be, you can take on groups. It must be very challenging to have player versus player with that type of combat. How do you get around people feeling like they understand where they're striking and they don't feel helpless?
Yeah, so one of the things is our combat right now, we're showing pre-alpha combat right now, but we are going to have a whole bunch of indicators in the game. They're more visceral. You see them being able to cut people apart, but we're going to have like the killing blows where the camera slows down and you can see the killing blow happen. And we'll have, like, people will know when they hit, when they strike. They'll know if the player's about ready to go down. We'll have all that visceral stuff like the blood on them, which you don't see here but will be in the game. You know, you see metal hitting metal. There'll be a whole bunch of what we call visual cues for the player. Again, we want to make it an action combat game. That's what we're about. So we want to make sure it's really intimate like that. And that's what we're about. And it's really, I think what you see in this pre-alpha is just the beginning of where we're going to head. Now, as you see here, we're doing the kind of old-style, turn-of-the-century type of leaderboards where they show up the best of the best and they do newspaper. And the cool thing about the end of the game is we want to promote a healthy community. So we allow people at the end of a match to go salute people and give them badges that they actually can use to gain experience in the game.
So they're opponents?
Absolutely.
Oh, wow, okay.
You know, so it's a good way to promote community in our game in a positive way, because these games have a bad way of promoting negative community.
People, yeah.
So we're trying to use that as a great game mechanic.
So talk about the metagame a bit then. So you say obviously there's the team deathmatches, the objective-based stuff, but then outside of that, is there a wider war happening?
There is a larger war that you're fighting with your faction, so you get faction points toward that and also territory. So you'll see a map that you'll all be fighting for that'll be updated in real time. We don't really want to talk too much about that because we're still in development on that, but that is the metagame that everyone will be fighting for.
Excellent. So team deathmatches is something that people expect from these types of multiplayer games. Can you talk a little bit about the objective-based stuff?
We will have several objective-based modes. Each one will have its unique feel and difference. And we're even looking at mixing up AI into that as well. So it's going to be really cool. This is just the beginning of what we're starting right now that people are playing with. We have it on the floor, and people really get into it easily, and they really enjoy playing the different characters in our game. A lot of people love the female warrior in our game. She's very tough. We took our inspiration from La Fin Lakita and other movies of inspiration, the woman with the dragon tattoo and things like that. They're very tough warriors, and you don't want to mess with them.
Awesome. Battlecry at Battlecry Studios is it came out of nowhere a couple of months ago. Bethesda obviously are helping you guys publish this game as well. And the game as well, and considering the big names that are working on it, it was sort of like a nice little surprise. How is it that you guys already have an alpha version to show here?
Oh yeah, we have a great team. We have people from Halo multiplayer, from Call of Duty multiplayer. We have people from God of War and BioShock all working on our game. So we actually, we're very picky in our hiring and very selective. We have a very small, tight team working on this game. And we iterate. We play our game twice a week. We iterate. And that's really our first year was about getting the fun. Our second part is about engagement. Yeah. Getting players. Why would players want to continue playing this game? What makes this game sticky? That's what we're working on right now, is making sure we have all the tiering going on, all the cool weapons designs that happen, all the cool modes that we're going to have in the game, and the metagame.
Well, that's obviously very important to you as someone who's been involved in some of the biggest MMOs
Absolutely.
in history.
Persistence and reason to come back and play. That's what we're focusing on right now. We got the fun in. Now we're focusing on the engagement.
Cool. I've got a bunch of questions I just want to get from the folks who are watching at the moment on GameSpot.com. What is your inspiration for the art style, Stuart Hopkins asked?
Oh, definitely graphic novels that we looked at. We definitely looked at the turn of the century and did a lot of research on what the turn of the century. That's a very cool time period, right?
Yeah, totally.
It's a clean Art Nouveau and Art Deco. And a lot of really cool architecture actually was built then. So right now you see a very European-themed level because this is a British faction. Yeah. But the Cossacks will be all in Russian. It will take place in Russia. And it will be in its own unique flavor and look for that. So we definitely use a lot of graphic novels and comics as our inspiration for that. In fact, our lead character artist, concept artist, is the guy who did Pacific Rim.
Oh, wow, really?
Yes, and he did all the weapons that you see here, all the transformations and things like that. So,
excellent.
He's an amazing artist, and he's a great designer of just mechanical stuff. And it's amazing to see him work.
That's incredible. Was his background in film or was it in
Absolutely,
games?
it was in film.
So is this one of the first games he's worked on?
Absolutely, and he's just he's just incredible. He just thinks out of the box on the different weapons, like the big huge sword transforming into a shield. I mean, that's just him just thinking of things like that. And you know, you can see his background of what he did, and it's amazing.
It seems like you guys have gathered a real who's who from all over the
Absolutely,
games industry.
And our team works really well. We're a very tight team. We're keeping it small and tight.
What always happens when we have games like this on that are competitive and PC is that folks are immediately asking, when can I have a go of it myself? So obviously you guys you're pretty early out of the box. Is there going to be betas at some stage in the future? When are you looking for even release?
All right, absolutely. So we're going to be releasing PC first, but you know we have the controllers on the floor, and it's funny how people migrate more to the controllers than the keyboard.
Yeah.
But yeah, we have the controllers. It's all set up for console. It's something what we're seriously are going to be looking at after the PC launch. But yeah, right now we're going to start beta in early of 2015.
Okay, cool.
So look for sign-ups in the fall.
Yeah. Where should they go for
there'll be a Battlecry, the game website. You'll actually Google it under Battlecry, the game. You'll find it.
Yeah, they're pretty easy. Yeah, so Dave Fetterman asked, any plans for a console version of Battlecry? Is that something that you're kind of shopping around at the moment?
No, I mean, this game cries to be on console.
Yeah.
I mean, because we got all our inspiration from console games. I mean, all of us are big console players, and we also are very big console designers. So a lot of our team have experience doing consoles. So you know, don't be surprised if you see it coming soon. And
you're working with Bethesda, who are one of the PC stalwarts, who now arguably have even been more successful when they got onto consoles.
Absolutely. So yeah, we definitely see this game playing well on the console.
A couple of people asking about specs, probably a bit early for that, but specifications for PC. I'm assuming you guys are going to try and keep it as scalable and open as possible.
Absolutely. We're using the Crytek engine in our game, and so it's pretty scalable. You know, we've actually had, you know, we're trying to look at 4K as well, just to see what that would look like.
Oh, really?
Yeah, to scale that high. But right now, it's pretty good. It scales really good for even people who have PCs today or even 2 years back to play our game.
Excellent. Am I right in saying as well that this is free to play?
This is free to play. That's our business model.
Yeah.
We look at it, but our first and foremost is making it fun and engaging, and then monetization on top of it. But we really are careful about monetization. We're about play to win, not pay to win.
I've heard that a couple of times today, actually. And yeah, I guess in many ways that, you know, some games there's a negative association with it for perhaps a lot of games, but I'm seeing, not to be reductive, I'm seeing a lot of Team Fortress 2 in this, which is very much a game that people are used to just playing for free.
So we want to make sure, one of our missions of our studio is to take AAA qualities and put it free to play. We see a huge market there. That's where we're heading towards. We believe there's not many people in the hardcore free to play, and that's where we are. So you're going to see all the AAA values that you normally see in games now free to play.
Do you have any idea what your microtransaction model is going to be? Yeah.
Well, we really are not quite yet to talk about it. Again, you know, we look at inspirations like League of Legends and World of Tanks.
Cool. So you've been around a long time. You've worked on a lot of MMOs. What's it like working on a game like this? Was this something you always wanted to do?
I always wanted to do this. I was a console person way before I was an MMO person. I worked on console games for 5 years before I even went into MMOs. And I love the console development, and I love PC. And basically, you know, we see definitely where I'm heading. This is a very tight, you know, game that's not going to take 5 years to develop, thank God. I think that's one of the things that kind of burned me out doing MMOs. They take so long to develop because they have so much content in them.
And then once they're done, it's a continuing process.
And then, you know, you continue on. So basically, we really want to do something cool, fast, and we grow it with the. We're going to be very much connected with the community as we go forward. So our website will be emerging over the summer to, you know, get feedback from our players, figure out what players like, what they don't like. We're going to be very much involved in streaming to our players with Twitch and other mechanisms to get our players involved in our game.
Excellent. Rich Vogel, absolute pleasure to meet you. Executive producer, Battlecry Studios.
Thank
with
you.
Battlecry. We can't wait to see more. Best of luck with the rest of the development. Stay here.